Hello and welcome to another podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. We are back looking at teams and chip strategies, this time with David. How are you doing, David?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. So it's really exciting to be doing one of these videos again. It kind of feels like the start of a new season in more ways than one. We've not had football in such a long time, not had to make these kind of decisions for ages. And it's only really at this time of year that we, those of us at Fantasy Football Scout, get the privilege of coming on one of these videos and talking about our teams for 20 minutes. So yeah, it's a very, very strange and exciting feeling.
Yeah, I said that on another video. It does feel like pre-season because these are all the kind of videos you do in like July. You don't usually get to do for the rest of the season, so it'll be good to go. So I'm going to bring your current team up now, which actually I was quite surprised by seeing the likes of Pepe in there. So you're kind of semi-okay for the double game week, I suppose. But do you just want to run through kind of your current team and what chips you got and why you're looking to use the chips that you are maybe in game week 30?
Yeah, so I was one of the people that didn't really want to make any changes to their team using that slow wildcard. So yeah, my team is literally just whatever it was set up to be for game week 29. And in a way, I'm sort of fortunate, as you mentioned there, to have Pepe and Aubameyang and already a number of double game week players for this double game week. Pepe and Aubameyang were players I brought in for the last double game week, which I always refer to as the double game week that never was, because it was going to be one, and then that Man City Arsenal game got postponed, and then we all know what happened after that. The whole league did. So it does kind of put me in a I don't want to say strong position for this double game week. You know, I've already got those players in, so I suppose I don't have to get them in. But everybody has unlimited transfers, including me. So even if I didn't have them, if I wanted those players, I could get hold of them quite easily. I mean, to be honest, I'm not a massive fan of what my team is looking like for this particular game week. I mean, so for example, I don't really know what to expect out of Liverpool in this particular game week when we think about all of the doubles on offer. Say, for example, the Man City players, and for Arsenal, Villa, Sheffield United. I'd rather have more of those than be completely tripled up on Liverpool for a Merseyside derby that they're always unpredictable games. So I mean, actually, the biggest glaring problem with my team as it was at the end of game week 29 before is no Man City players, and that for me. I've got to go heavy in on that. The chips that I've got left are I've still got the wild card. I've got the bench beast and the free hit, so I'm in a pretty strong position. I've said before the fact that I saved my wild card and then now I've been given unlimited transfers. I don't really see that as a disadvantage. Like if someone said, do you want two wild cards or one wild card? Every time you'd say yes to two wild cards, and that's what I've got. So I'm happy
Absolutely.
to kind of to roll with that, no problem. It does have its own little issues because obviously, I mean, I'll talk about my unlimited transfers team obviously a little bit later, but if I'm going to use my wildcard after unlimited transfers, my unlimited transfers might negate the value that I can kind of get out of my wildcard. But even still, I'm not really that bothered. Um, to have all those chips available for this part of the season is got to be the strongest position that you can possibly be in. And maybe that's good luck. Maybe that's good planning. Put whatever reason you want on that. I'm happy with what I have available. I'm just not really that happy with the team that I've got. I've got to be honest. I look at it, I think it's just horrible. I mean, there's some players in there that I like. Obviously, I mean, I think most people will be able to pick those out. I think they're obvious to people, but it's like Cantwell. Yes, I guess he offers some value, but I kind of feel like I haven't really seen much of him be particularly useful recently. Perez is another one.
Yeah,
I
he's
just look
got to
at
go,
Perez
hasn't
and
he?
think, yeah, 100%. I do, but it's not even like because he's kind of like it's an easy decision, but for me, it's almost like a revenge decision because there was a time when it was Perez versus Barnes, and for reasons I thought were good at the time, and I wasn't the only one, went with Perez, and it just completely went the other way. And anyone who had Barnes, I think you have
Yeah, I went Barnes. Yeah,
Barnes, Andy
absolute
Phillip,
legend.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I mean, had I gone the other way on that one, I might have had a harder decision at this point. But yeah, I lost out big time on that, so I cannot wait to sell him. I'm not too certain about McCarthy in goal for Southampton. I mean, they made some defensive improvements at the turn of the year, but they kind of dipped off again in around March sort of time. Sarr obviously is a big hero for me, but when we look at the sort of like the remaining fixtures and the potential value players, I mean, I can't really see too many reasons to be being like really religiously holding on to him as well. So plenty of changes I want to make. as I've said, I'm quite happy that we're going to have unlimited transfers. It kind of gives me the freedom to attack this final stage of the season in pretty much whatever way I want, which is a good place to be in.
And have you? So you looking? So you got bench boost left? Is that what you're looking to use this week, and then wildcard out of that? Is that the kind of plan?
Yeah, that's right. So, if you look at the season ticker, a lot of people will notice that the teams that have the good double game week, not many of them have a particularly good run beyond that. So, using a couple of examples, Man City, Arsenal, and Burnley, two home games. I mean, we don't really know how much advantage a home game is going to be, but either way, we expect them to do well in those games. That's what they got at first, but then they played Chelsea and Liverpool. So,
It's
one of the
tough,
reasons
yeah.
I didn't, yeah, exactly. One of the reasons why I didn't have loads of Man City players before was, because of those tougher fixtures on the short term horizon. And going back to my thought process in March, even then, I was looking at the fixtures beyond that as, when I use my wild card, which, I still can, because beyond the Chelsea and Liverpool game, they've got Southampton, Newcastle, Brighton, very nice fixtures. But holding Man City like holding a double game week's worth of Man City players, like possibly a triple up through Chelsea and Liverpool, is quite difficult to do, especially when you have the wild card. I mean, Sheffield United is another one. Aston Villa and Newcastle, very nice, but then it's Man United, Tottenham, and even Burnley's potentially tough. I think Burnley offer a lot more goal threat than sometimes people realise. And of course, that Man United game, Henderson can't play in, which obviously reduces the impact of the defenders anyway. There's talk of, I've even seen sort of talk in the press today that Man United are considering like ending his loan, or rather enforcing the original end date of his loan, just to kind of like scrap a Sheffield United chance. I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen, but it's
No,
something worth
I
noting.
can't see that. I know we won't sidetrack too much, but if they do that, can you imagine the PR? That's a really
Oh
bad
yeah,
move. Even
but
as a Man
they're the
United,
guys that they just tried to sue Football Manager, so I don't
that's
think they care
true.
about
Yeah,
PR anymore. I mean, you're right. I mean, it's potentially unlikely, but the fact that it's sort of being talked about
yeah. So
again,
you
it's
have
just
to consider it.
another. Yeah, it's another thing at the back of the mind to think that actually Henderson, actually long term for the rest of the season, isn't really that worth having. Villa, another one. They don't really do that well anyway, so we're only really going to go big on Villa just for a double game week. Arsenal, their fixtures kind of look nicer in the short term after that double. They've got Southampton and Norwich, but either way, the general gist is the best squad for game week 30 is going to look very sort of different to the best squad for say game week 31 to
Yeah, I
34,
agree.
5, or even through to 38. So for me, it's a really easy decision, which I'm not locked in yet. I will just say clarify. I'm not saying I'm definitely going to do this, but I'm really, really strongly considering unlimited transfers into a bench boost for 30 plus, I should say, and then immediately deploy the wild card on Wednesday. At what time will it be? Like 5:30. Deploy it then, and start building a squad for the rest of the season using that.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'll bring up your free hit team. Sorry, not your free hit team. Your unlimited transfers team to build for a bench boost. And you've still got Trent Alexander-Arnold in there. No Salah. Like, if you, one thing that a few people have been talking about is team value, because obviously anyone you take out that you've got built up team value and that you then want back, is that a consideration for you, or is there not enough players that you think you're gonna want a wild card back in that you already own?
Yeah, so I mean, you've mentioned Alexander-Arnold there. I mean, I'll cover him first because yeah, absolutely you're right. That is the worry with the strategy that we're talking about. It feels like an easy way to go because I think you want to try and attack the game weeks as much as you can, and I think that strategy is a way of doing it. But yeah, you are just going to have to be aware of decisions you're going to need to make about who's coming back. So Alexander-Arnold was a big one for me because I mean, the thing is, Liverpool's fixtures are kind of, they're not. I kind of see them as sort of like so-so, and normally when Liverpool's fixtures are so-so, kind of mixed in the short and medium term, sometimes you can be really heavily punished for not remaining invested because they're a quality team. And then even beyond that, they play Villa, Brighton, and Burnley in game weeks 33, 35. So, I'm going to want Liverpool players on my wild card, I think, and Alexander-Arnold is the one who would cost me the most to bring back in. So no Salah in there, but at the moment, I think my sell value for him was 12.45 and his current cost is 12.7. So getting rid of him and then pulling him back in is going to cost me no more than 0.2, 0.3, which is not, it's hardly small, but it's not massive. With Alexander-Arnold, it would be at least 0.4, possibly 0.5. And that is quite a big thing to sort of sacrifice and not be able to get back to. And it's not like his fixture in game week 30 is awful. Everton have been scoring goals, but so it's Alexander-Arnold. He can always get attacking returns at any opportunity. So the main reason he stays is for what you've mentioned there. I can't really bring myself to keep Salah if I really want to be heavily involved in the attacking players for this double game week. But as I said, I think the gap between Salah and his and bringing him back in is going to be smaller than Alexander-Arnold, because he's always been quite highly owned throughout the season anyway. So Salah's price generally fluctuates, but it doesn't sort of shoot millions of miles away from what he started at. It never shoots down millions of miles away from downwards. Whereas Alexander-Arnold just continues to get better and better and better. So every game week he just gets harder and harder to bring back in if you sell him. So big reason to hold on to him. It's a little bit restrictive. It is a bit annoying because there are some areas of this squad that I would love to improve.
Well, that's what I'm going to ask you about now. Because so I think, right, this is one. I hope I've got this right, because I've said this a lot of times now. But one thing I think people are looking at, it's a double game week, so I must bench boost. But the maximum amount of double game week players you can have is 12, right? I've said that quite a few times now. So 3 of them at least have to be single game week players. So looking at your team here, you've got, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 double game week players. Have I counted that right?
I think that's right.
I think that's right. So you've got 6 single game week players. So you're having to keep Trent Alexander-Arnold, who, to be fair, like, we could debate whether he's a good pick to have anyway. I'm pretty sure most people would agree he is, even for Everton in a single game week. But one of the reasons you're keeping him, though, is because of the value. Before we talk about the bench boost team in general, have you considered using the free hit? Because that would, one of the reasons why that could be decent, you can go full on double game week if you wanted to. It preserves your value, and you can still wildcard afterwards and set up for a bench boost. Bearing in mind, for this particular team, other people might be setting up differently, but for your team, you're going to have 4 single game weekers on the bench anyway, so it's no different doing that now than in another week, maybe. So have you considered that at all?
Oh, absolutely. I certainly have. I mean, I think that particular strategy works really well if you're someone who's spent time over the lockdown making those transfers every week, doing the slow wildcard and getting your game week 29 or rather game week 38 team to something you'd be happy to revert to. And I think, sort of looking back, I actually do regret not having done that now, because there were things there were issues with it. But I kind of said throughout the whole thing, because I don't really know exactly how things are going to come back. Of course, when I made the decision in sort of March time to just leave it, we didn't know we were going to have a limited transfers, for example. So I still stick by my plan at the time. I think it made sense to me then. But in hindsight, had I made more transfers just to get my team so that a free hit now would leave me with a team I actually kind of like, then it would make me a little bit more inclined to go with that particular strategy of free hitting back to it. Now, obviously, I could still wildcard after that. But, yeah, I mean, it does mean committing the free hit away and then not being able to use it at a later point as well. So there's lots of sort of judgment calls you've got to make on balancing all these things out. And I kind of like the idea of using the free hit on like the last day of the season and just pulling in. Because the thing is, when we go into the last day of the season, I think in the last few years, we've all sort of come to a loose agreement that the game week 38 is a little bit like a double game week in the sense that not that there's more games, but it's a game week where it's different to a usual game week. You're going to see games that finish like 4-4 or 5-4 or 6-0, 6-1, because for all the reasons that we've seen it before. Like some teams are on the beach, some teams just kind of like one player wants to get the golden boot, all sort of factors like that. I do definitely see game week 38 as when you're looking at the season, where can I deploy my chips? And you usually look in the blank here, the double here, the double here, the blank here. I do think increasingly we should be starting to include game week 38 in that bracket of a bench boost could work well here, or a triple captain could work here. I mean, we saw someone win it with a triple captaincy, as in the whole thing, on the last day of the season, I think maybe two years ago. So deploying chips in that last game week, I think, can make a massive, massive difference. Almost like a Hail Mary pass right at the end. So considering that I'm gonna wild card anyway, committing the free hit to that sort of process, I'm not sure I'm like that happy with. Bearing in mind that I think the free hit could also have some impact for me at a later stage.
Yeah, especially if there's like another few postponements or something. Because like right now we know as the fixtures are set out, there won't be any more double game weeks, but that's only if there's no. It's like any other normalcy, unless there's any postponements, and that's not going to be because of the FA Cup or Europe as it stands. But there could be, given what's happened in 2020 so far, there's every chance there could be more postponements. So yeah, it could be worth keeping. I just think that's a strategy not many people have probably considered. So
let's definitely look at it. It's definitely worth considering. I just think it doesn't quite work well for my team. So.
Yeah, and I think again every team's different, obviously, but the fact you didn't make transfers probably plays a big part. I think the free hit this week and bench boost and wildcard later probably works better if you made, like you said, like you made transfers and you've got maybe a few more Man United players, maybe one or two City players, etc. Let's talk about the actual bench boost then. So you've only gone for 9. I say only, it's still quite a lot, but obviously a lot of people are going to be looking for 10 or 11 plus, especially on a bench boost. So what is it? 3 Arsenal with Pepe. I'm going to ask you how happy you are about him in a sec. 2 from Villa, of course, Grealish, and you are the president of the Target fan club. Only 2 Man City. Double game week for Man City, and only 2 Aguero, De Bruyne. So no Laporte, no Sterling, no Sané or anyone like that. So what's the thinking with the double gaming players? Let's start with Pepe. How confident are you? 9.2 million is a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose I should say, in a way, I should be as confident now as I was when I took a hit to get him for the double game week before. I can't remember who they played. I think they had one because they were going to play Man City. They had another game. Was it? I can't remember who it was. I remember them disappointing in it. Of course, that's what Arsenal do, isn't it? They completely let you down. So yeah, he's one of those. So when I said that there's areas I could maybe improve, I think he could be one of them. I need to kind of go through some of the data again, but from memory, there was some relatively encouraging stuff there that suggested that if he were to kind of keep that form up, then maybe he could deliver something. So, from between January and March, he was a top for assists for Arsenal, for example. He was the only player outside of Aubameyang to score more than twice. So you're right. The price is a thing, but I suppose the unlimited transfers for me is a little bit like a free hit. So actually, I'm not sort of like that bothered if I've got a player who I'm paying more than they're possibly worth if I think they could be explosive, which I think he could be. But yeah, I guess just to sort of answer your question with a short answer, like I'm not 100% confident. He could easily be swapped for maybe Ozil, so that I'm still in the Arsenal invested in someone outside of Aubameyang. But then free up maybe 2.5 million to throw somewhere else, maybe upgrade Den Donker, or somewhere in defence or something like that. So he's not completely nailed in. I mean, I'll touch on Aubameyang because I think I shocked you a couple of days ago when we did another video when I said I don't think he's essential for this game week, because I can never work out if I can trust him. And I still think that's true, but I'll just sort of go back to my idea for these game weeks is just to attack it in every possible way I can. And I've been burnt enough times by not owning Aubameyang when he's done well. He's got 2 games, so the chances of him scoring are higher than a player who's only got 1 game. In depending on how you look at it. So I want to be in the pot for that. I think he's going to be a captaincy candidate as well. I generally, when I'm setting up my team with absolutely no restrictions, either with a wild card or free hit or what have you. When I'm in that situation, I want to make sure I have all the captaincy options covered. And at the moment, I kind of think I do by having Aubameyang, De Bruyne, and Aguero. I think I kind of feel like they're going to be the big 3 for this game week. So as long as they're there, then I'm kind of like happy. I feel like I've covered every base. I still don't trust Aubameyang, but I don't think I'm brave enough to go without him.
I really think he's one of the players that's first on virtually everybody's team sheets, and why not? Like, he's so consistent. So here's the thing I've just noticed, and this is another reason why I think free hit should be a big consideration for people. So you're holding Trent Alexander-Arnold in this team because you don't want to lose the value, which is absolutely fine. The free hit would obviously stop that being a worry. Trent Alexander-Arnold and Pepe are killing you. Like this, I just realised how bad this bench boost is. You're bench boosting with Cantwell, I think is okay because he's cheap and he's playing Southampton at home. But Den Donker, that's a waste of a slot. That's a bench boost with 3 players. No, I'm not happy with this at all. Do you not? I feel like Trent and Pepe are killing you here.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I've seen some people say that they feel like having Aubameyang and Aguero is what's killing it. But I don't think that's true because of the sort of reasons I just mentioned. But Pepe, I could definitely afford to go without. And I'll just bring in another consideration that is probably worth thinking about, even in the Aubameyang thing, but definitely for Pepe too. Arsenal's turnaround between these two games is really, really tight. So they play Wednesday night, and then I think are they playing? I think they're playing again on Saturday. But either way, I can tell you that the turnaround is 66 hours, which isn't particularly long. Yeah, like the threat of rotation probably quite high, because even though Arteta's hardly Pep, he's hardly Sean Dyche either. He's not the type of player, not the type of manager afraid to sort of change players here and there, especially in wide positions where you need a lot of pace and stamina. And let's not forget that, of course, these players have all had 3 months without match fitness. So, it's entirely possible that players won't be ready to play 2 games in such a short spell of time. And I think that's a threat for Aubameyang, but I think it's more so a threat for Pepe. So, that's at the back of my mind as well. I mean, generally speaking, it's going to be really hard to predict who's going to be nailed on in this particular period, because we're moving quite literally into uncharted territory here. So for example, Özil, I think he played every game under Arteta from January onwards, or something like that. So if I switch to him, then maybe I'm feeling that might be a more safe slot in terms of, I'm confident he could play, because Özil's not the type of player who exactly busts a gut in games anyway. Like, he can play a full 90 minutes without really breaking a sweat, and if he's playing well, can still do what he needs to do. Whereas Pepe is all about that pace, the trickery, those bursts of acceleration. Sustaining that over 2 games could be quite difficult. So, yeah, I mean, if anything, we're capturing right here live footage of me already thinking, yeah, maybe I'm going to move on Pepe.
Yeah, I was just thinking to myself, I kind of wish I'd given Joe's team a rating, because I would give your team a rating. It'd be, I think, D- with that Dendonker on the bench for who's not happy with it at all. I'm sure, like you said, you'll rework it before next Wednesday.
Very early days.
So a couple of other questions just before we wrap up then. I appreciate, like, everybody is going to consider every single player, but is there any other kind of double game week players that are near the top of your mind that you probably will think about fitting in? Like, I'm thinking like McGinn, maybe a third Man City player, anything like that, or have you kind of ruled certain teams or certain players out at this point?
Yeah, so I mean, funnily enough, you've caught me halfway through writing the article on McGinn, so I will just touch on him now. I like the idea of going for McGinn. I think he could, for example, if I go for Özil, maybe I can upgrade Dendoncker to McGinn, and then we're starting to bench boost, more attacking type players. I still have some concerns about McGinn in terms of his match fitness. I mean, and also where he fits back into this Villa team. So they were playing 4-3-3 when he was injured. Then when he got injured, they moved to 3-4-3, which, to be fair, might have been because he got injured, and then him coming back means they go back to 4-3-3. But if they were to continue with 3-4-3, I wouldn't really know where he'd fit in, because they were sort of largely playing a midfield pair that was like a double pivot in terms of the holding. Like, Drinkwater plays quite a deep role and tries to, pass from that particular area. But playing with 2 central midfielders and one of them's a box-to-box could leave them even more exposed. So I think expecting McGinn to come straight back in and be nailed on for both games would be, I think, that'd be a bit naive to expect that to definitely happen. It may happen, but I'm not sure that I can guarantee it. Plus, also the fact that if you think about, most of Villa's players haven't played a competitive match since March. McGinn's not played a competitive match since mid-December, so that's 6 months without playing regularly. Even though he's fit now in terms of the injuries gone, his match fitness. So I may still go for him, because, as I keep sort of saying, with these, if you're attacking these game weeks, you can't get lucky with some of these players unless you're in the pot, to borrow late risers' expression. So I may still go for it, but I still have concerns there. Other players in that sort of bracket, I will reference Man City. Like, who would my third player be if I had to pick one? If I had to pick one, it'd probably be Edison, because I'm not confident on Sterling to start both games. I mean, he may still have involvement in both, but I didn't see enough from him before the sort of coronavirus suspension to suggest that he can really. I'm not confident that he could come back all guns firing. I mean, maybe he could, but just what we saw of him before the suspension wasn't impressive enough to me. He was he wasn't accurate enough. He wasn't shooting enough, and his creativity had kind of really dropped off as well. A player of his price, you kind of want to be expecting goals and assists, and his creativity had really dropped off in the second half of the season. It was kind of there in the first half of the season, but I think he has 2 assists the whole year, and he's had double figures for assists in all the other 3 campaigns. So something wasn't right about Sterling. So, and it's so expensive, so I can't really see myself going for him. I fully applaud anyone who's going to be brave enough to go for it. But Sané coming back in complicates things. You've got Mahrez, Bernardo Silva, so many options for those 2 roles, less so for Aguero. And then the defence. I've historically not been a massive fan of Man City defenders. I will I'll go for them if you can get like a Zinchenko, like he was 5.5, I think. And they've got a nice run of fixtures. But I don't really like paying the kind of like the higher prices for like Laporte or Mendy. Just because you never know who's going to play. I mean, Man City's defense, I'd never describe it as settled, even in the centre back situation. Maybe that's because of injury. But Laporte is another player who I couldn't say would play both because, like McGinn, he'd only just come back from injury when the suspension happened. So he hasn't had prolonged, sustained 90-minute, week in, week out playing football competitively for a long, long time. And also, so Edison, I think, is definitely going to play both. That's fine. But I don't know if I can never trust the Man City defense because they're very, very good at restricting the chances. They're always, so the last 6 matches before the coronavirus suspension, they were best in the league for shots in the box conceded, so fewest there. Best in the league for big chances conceded. Best in the league for shots on target. They had the lowest XGC. But something like 5 or 6 teams conceded fewer goals than them. 4 or 5 teams kept more clean sheets than them because actually it doesn't really take that much to score against Man City. Like, yes, they'll restrict the number of chances, but the number of the chances they do give up, there's a higher chance that will end up as a goal than for literally every other team. Because I don't really think their defenders are that good at defending. They're fantastic at holding onto the ball, distributing it, helping to press the other team into a box on top of the midfield and the attack. So I'm not criticizing the team or saying that Man City are rubbish, but I can never really trust Man City's defense enough to justify spending 6 million plus on one of their defenders, especially if I think Edison's the only one who's actually going to play. And he's probably not going to make that many saves. Like Edison and a 4.5 million goalkeeper versus Henderson and Leno for a bench boost.
I agree. I'm not interested. Yeah, I wouldn't be interested in Edison at all, to be honest. I think it's a bit harsh on the Man City defence. They haven't performed as well as they should have done this season, but I do think Laporte's been a big miss. And he did come back from his injury, but he did look proper knackered, to be fair. I think there was a Leicester game or something where he came off like after 60 minutes or so because he was just knackered. But he's had a big break now, so I'm expecting to come back and hopefully play too. I know what you mean, but obviously when you say you don't want to pay...
It's that you can't trust them to sustain clean sheet output at the same level as Liverpool do, for example. So they're, in my mind, the value isn't as good.
Yeah, I get it, but obviously you're not having to keep them for more than just this week. Neither's anyone on a free hit, so I would consider it. All right, anything else you want to add before we end this one?
No, I don't think. I mean, I guess just one last thing on the Sheffield United defence. I think some people have sort of suggested the triple up option. I'm not entirely certain I'm brave enough to do that because Sheffield United defence is not as watertight as we think. It's good. It keeps lots of clean sheets, but a lot of that's down to Henderson. So then, if they're all relying on that, that's just a little bit too much reliance on one individual for me to really gamble on 3 of those players. And I don't actually think I can fit one in unless I'm sort of starting to take out Pepe and Alexander-Arnold, so because they're a little bit more expensive now, of course. So yeah, I think the double up on the Sheffield United defence is where it ends for me. But yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, I actually kind of agree to us. I will probably triple up, I think, on a free hit, but I am not 100% confident of like even 1 clean sheet, let alone 2, because I just think it's been so long off now. Who knows what they'll come back like. But all right, we'll have to leave it there because you've got a lot of work to do on this team. You can't be talking about it anymore. You've got a few changes. I really think this has been a good video for those with bench boost and free hit and wildcard to strongly consider free hitting depending on what your team's in, because I just think, especially if you're protecting team value, free hit's a very good way of doing it. So hopefully by the time this video goes out, by Monday, you can get that D- score up to like a B or an A potentially. All right, cheers, David.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, thanks for having me and thanks for rating my team.
No worries. Thanks everyone for watching. If you've enjoyed it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new around here, and we will catch you tomorrow for another video.